You know, a lot of people like to say that it's not really possible to do an objective review, and I agree with them. All forms of criticism or analysis are subject to bias. That being said, Outer Wilds is probably the closest we can get to an objectively good game. Every moment of it leaves you awestruck at the detail, beauty, and, most importantly, the history of your solar system. This video is going to be about that history, or rather, the parts of it that don't quite make sense. Not as an objective critique of how the game is made or how its story is presented, but more in a CinemaSins, haha, this detail is weird and funny kind of way. Of course, I'll be ranking these sins the only way I know how. A tier list, with F tier being the least egregious, and S tier requiring maximum suspension of disbelief. Of course, spoilers for the base game and DLC ahead, and thanks for Small Crime for providing me with the background footage for this video. Note, this video won't be covering every single realism thing about the game, like how one tree is enough to refill your oxygen or how planets and stars won't actually work on this scale. All of those complaints go into F tier. For the first real entry on this list, the Ember Twin Anglerfish. I well and truly have no idea how an anglerfish could have gotten stuck in this cave. Remember, the nearby escape pod didn't fall into a pre-existing entrance, it broke into the cave. This fish would have had to navigate multiple long and winding paths underground before eventually reaching this place. Though, since it isn't too significant to the rest of the game besides the anglerfish hint, I'll put it in B tier. A real important issue though is the sunless city filling with sand. This one's pretty insane to me. The fact that the permanent shelter on Ember Twin is constantly at risk of being buried alive makes it hard to believe that this was in any way a settlement, regardless of how often the falling sand between Ash Twin and Ember Twin swap. The only thing I can give them is that maybe the sand we see fall into the center hadn't eroded its way in yet, but with how pristine some other objects across the solar system have remained, it's a tough sell for me. A tier. Speaking of sand, Ash Twin. I think it would be a real challenge to hollow out the planet when a pillar of sand threatens to bury your work every once in a while. Depending on how long it takes to swap, you might only have a short period to actually dig at the core before the sand begins to fall back down. However, with how important this project was and how advanced the Nomai are, a large workforce could reasonably get it done over a long period of time. Still, B tier. And once the planet gets hollowed out, keeping it stable is another issue, especially with the aforementioned giant pillar of sand. But, again, the Nomai are an advanced civilization, so keeping the core from collapsing isn't much of a stretch. D tier. Now, onto the planet we start on, Timber Hearth. We know that Dark Bramble appeared at least hundreds of thousands of years ago, yet only recently does one of its seeds land on another planet. However, this isn't super significant, and it doesn't really contradict anything, so I can't be too mad about it. C tier. Similarly to that, it's pretty convenient that Brittle Hollow only decided to fall apart as much as it does in these 22 minutes. Also similarly, it doesn't contradict anything, though it is much more significant. Surviving an orbital bombardment for this long and only now breaking apart because of it deserves a B tier. Now on to Giant's Deep, we find a vital piece to an endgame puzzle that seems perfectly adapted to this planet and is actually from a frozen block of ice. How did they survive being frozen, launched into space, and dropped into an entirely new environment? How did they all get below the current? How did Dark Bramble, a planet so far from the sun and presumably with no atmosphere, ever have liquid water? I have no idea. Where are these jellyfish going? A tier. I know Dark Bramble just caught a stray, but another weird thing is the seed exploding the planet from inside out. I know it's a weird space-time anomaly seed, but warping through an entire sphere of ice to get to the core is a little fishy. Sorry, big fishy. C tier. We've been talking about ice for a while now, and we aren't done yet. It's pretty convenient that the fissure on the interloper is able to refreeze itself to make entering it a bit of a puzzle, especially after getting close and personal with the sun for over 2,000 years. This one goes in B tier. Here comes a big one, being unable to access the eye from the quantum moon. We get no explanation for this other than, you just can't do it, man. I know that it's because they want you to do the Ash Twin Project stuff, feeling the weight of the entire universe on your back, but give us a better reason than that. This goes in A tier, and the only reason it isn't in S tier is because the quantum moon has other weird rules like the 6th location requirement. And now, for the thing that inspired this entire video, how the hell did the Nomai never find the stranger? They spent generations in the solar system, and not once did they fly above the orbital plane. I know their gravity cannon ships only fire along that plane, but I refuse to believe that they never used fuel-based propulsion. You'd have to do a lot of work to convince me that the Sun Station and Orbital Probe Cannon were just meatballed into orbit around their respective bodies without having any way to control their momentum. There is no way that they could build giant gravity railguns and not solid fuel boosters. And yeah, I know it's the DLC, it was made later, but come on, S tier. Finally, the last thing on this list also has to do with the stranger. Why isn't it able to project the sun onto itself? It can project every other body just fine, but the sun is too bright for it? I wouldn't care as much if the Alks even tried to put like a crusty PNG of the sun onto the cloaking field when it was eclipsing it, but they didn't even do that. One final B tier. And that's everything I could think of. If I missed something or got some detail wrong, I don't really care that much, but feel free to comment them. Again, all of this is coming from a place of love for the game, and shouldn't be taken very seriously. With all that said and done, I'll see you in the next one.